Now, of course, the conservative at this point would argue that medical tourists come to the US specifically because we provide some of the best quality care in the world. Is this in fact the case? I took a very close look at healthcare outcomes and quality in a previous project, and there, after looking at lots of data on the subject, I concluded that we pay much more in the United States to receive care of only an average quality and to receive only average outcomes. There is simply no empirical support for the claim that quality of care overall in the United States is significantly better than that of other countries. Maybe you could concede that point about overall quality, but you might still try to argue that we do have some of the best medical technology, specialists, and facilities in the world, and it is for this reason that people travel to the US for care. This is something that I didn't address in my project on healthcare quality, so let's take a look at how the United States compares to other countries in these particular areas. The first thing to point out is that it's hard to even quantify these things and create such rankings. What specific criteria should we use to determine which are the best medical facilities in the world? The technology available, patient survival and recovery rates, patient satisfaction surveys, how shiny the scalpels are? All of these things and others combined? Should these different factors be equally weighed, or should others be more influential in the rankings than others? It seems that there will inevitably be some subjective component to these rankings, and that they will always be open to debate. I don't know how people who make these assertions, that the US has the world's best specialists and medical facilities, even come to this conclusion, because from what I could find doing research, there just aren't a lot of good quality rankings of these things based upon a sound methodology. So on what grounds do people even make these claims? I really think people are just talking completely out of their ass when they say things like, the United States has the best specialists in the world. How the fuck do you know? Have you compared specialists in the United States against specialists in France or China and every other country on the planet? How have you empirically demonstrated that the medical technology available in Singapore or South Korea is inferior to that we have within the United States? I think when people say shit like this, it's not actually backed up by facts and a reputable list of the rankings, but it's just something they blindly assume and baldly assert. And when they say it in front of an American audience, nobody questions it and most people just take it for granted. This looks to me much more like thoughtless, flag-waving jingoism than it does objective science. I did a bunch of research and I just couldn't find good quality rankings of the world's medical facilities or specialist doctors, and some of the worldwide rankings that I could find strike me as being much more clickbaity than they are actual rigorous attempts to provide reliable rankings on these questions. BookIMed.com appears to have a pretty good ranking criteria for the world's cancer facilities, taking into consideration such things as success rates, staff experience, pricing, and hospital conditions. But you take a look at the website and everything about it screams, we're trying to get you to book an appointment somewhere, presumably so we can make some money. That doesn't necessarily discount the validity of their rankings, but it does give the article a clickbaity vibe, and to me makes it seem a lot less rigorous and professional. That said, according to them, the number one cancer facility in the world is the Asklepios Medical Center in Germany. The home country of the top 10 cancer facilities are as follows: Germany, Thailand, Italy, Spain, Israel, Turkey, Germany again, India, Turkey again, and South Korea. Conspicuously absent from these rankings is the United States. But again, I don't know how much currency we should put behind these rankings. Notice that the number one cancer facility in the world, according to them, is in Germany. Then, later in the article, they say the number one facility in Germany is another cancer facility. That's a pretty glaring contradiction right there. Perhaps this is an example of that famous German humor I've heard so much about. On top of that, the article is just poorly and awkwardly written in places. We read that, quote, IBM Watson is a supercomputer based on using the artificial intelligence. The revolutionary technology contains the data of thousands of researches. There are all conditions for comfortable stay at the hospital. Children feel like at home here. End quote. Maybe that just means the author's first language isn't English, and maybe the ranking methodology at the end of the day is still sound, but I have a hard time saying that we should completely trust these rankings. And to believe it or not, this sadly is the single best worldwide medical facility ranking criteria that I could find. Another list, courtesy of topmastersinhealthcare.com, ranks the 30 most technologically advanced hospitals in the world. Now obviously this is a pretty narrow criteria, because all they're focusing on is technology in particular, but pickings are slim, so this is what we have to work with. We'll just look at the top 10 hospitals. Starting at number 1, these are located in the United States, India, the United States, Turkey, the United States, Thailand, the United States, Lebanon, Singapore, and Germany. So 4 out of the top 10 are located in the United States. Impressive. In another article, they also rank the most technologically advanced cancer facilities in the world, and of the top 10, the top 6 are in the United States, with number 7 being in Canada, number 8 also being in the United States, number 9 being in the UK, and number 10 being in Spain. Now, before conservatives start coming in their pants and declaring victory, they provide a crucial caveat at the start of their article. Many countries around the world are going to be underrepresented in these rankings, not because they perform poorly in these areas, but because the researchers' information gathering process had a clear bias in favor of English-speaking countries. Quote, "In an effort to preserve the international aspect of this ranking, we intentionally sought to include hospitals from many regions outside of North America. Unfortunately, language barriers, a lack of web presence, poor translations, and/or limited access to information can and did impede this process." End quote. So when the people doing the research admit to us that non-English speaking countries are at a severe disadvantage, is it any wonder that the United States ranks so highly? These rankings have clearly been heavily biased in favor of English-speaking countries, so we simply can't describe them as reliable and informative. Another article on healthcareglobal.com is entitled Top 10 Hospitals in the World, but clearly not a lot of thought and effort went into this article. The content doesn't even reflect the title. The title implies that there would be a top 10 ranking of the world's best hospitals, but instead the anonymous author basically provides the top 1 hospital in 10 separate niche areas of healthcare. In general, we're told that the best in the world is Johns Hopkins Hospital in the United States. We also learn that the world's largest hospital is in South Africa. Neat. The best children's hospital is apparently in the UK, but the indecisive author walks back his classification by merely calling it, quote, one of the world's leading children's hospitals, end quote. The pattern repeats itself when we're told that the world's best hospital for medical training is in the US. In his 2-sentence description of this hospital, however, he writes that it is, quote, arguably one of the best medical schools in the world, end quote. He doesn't say, here is the criteria that I used to arrive at this conclusion. Instead, we're simply told that, quote, Harvard Med is famed for its levels of research and primary care, end quote. Oh, it's famed for these things. Well, holy fuck, that is convincing enough for me. Stormy Daniels might be famed for sucking cock, but that doesn't mean she gives the world's best blowjob. In order to figure out who actually does, we'd need to run a very large-scale comparison with a sound methodology. And in the interest of furthering scientific inquiry, I am willing to take one for the team and subject myself to this debauchery. Get your dick sucked for science. Now that's an initiative that'll get some clipboard signatures. The real quality information on hospital ranking in this Healthcare Global article actually comes from the comments section. Quote, very good, go, 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 yes good, end quote. I couldn't have said it any better myself. I'm sorry, but none of these worldwide rankings that I've come across strike me as being based upon a sound methodology, and none of them are actual scientific publications. The one that actually has the best ranking criteria is the one from bookimed.com, because they actually took into consideration many key variables, and 0 of their top 10 cancer facilities are located in the US. Trying to rank the world's best doctors or specialists is even more futile than this, because the ranking would arguably be even more subjective. Not surprisingly, I wasn't able to find any studies which rank the world's best doctors in certain fields, and the best thing you'll be able to find are websites like ratemds.com, which are basically the Yelp of doctors. It should go without saying that websites like this are untrustworthy indicators of physician skill and knowledge. Perhaps one physician's office more heavily encourages its patients to leave reviews, and it is for this reason that they show up higher in the website's rankings. Perhaps a grumpy, antisocial doctor gets poor reviews, even if at the end of the day he's a medical genius. Conversely, perhaps people leave a 5-star review simply because the doctor was friendly and charismatic, even if when it comes to the medical science itself, he's a bumbling fuck-up. Ah, so you hurt your wrist playing basketball, huh? I get this all the time and I know exactly what to do. We need to amputate immediately. Here, bite down on this dirty rag and I'll start sawing. On top of all these sources of bias that are not relevant to medical expertise, websites like this are obviously built around the English language, so even if the ratings were accurate measurements of medical proficiency alone, they're just not going to be informative on the question of who are the best medical specialists in the world. So whenever you hear people say things like the United States has the best doctors and medical facilities in the world, understand and please point out to them that they are talking completely out of their ass, because there simply are not any rigorous worldwide rankings that are informative on these particular questions. Let's be clear about what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that the United States doesn't have great medical facilities and great doctors. What I'm saying is that there is insufficient evidence to justify the claim that we have the best medical facilities and the best doctors in the entire world. There might be strong opinions within the medical community on which facilities are the best for certain treatments, and certain facilities might have great reputations, but until you can point me to some hard data on these questions, I'm going to have a very hard time believing that the United States has uniquely talented specialists or uniquely innovative medical technology that no other country in the world can compare to. Yes, I will concede that there are some great medical facilities in the United States with great technology that people travel to receive care in. The problem for me is that when conservatives point this out, they're failing to take into consideration the great medical facilities in other countries that people travel to visit. The US has some great medical facilities, but so does Australia and so does Singapore. We might have some cutting-edge medical technology in the United States, but so does the UK and so does China. So the conservative thinking on this subject is plagued by selection bias, counting the hits and ignoring the misses. They will shine a spotlight on the medical tourists seeking great facilities and technology within the United States, but they pay no attention to the medical tourists seeking the exact same thing within other countries. They're paying attention only to the people who support their position, and they're ignoring the people who contradict their position. I'm on Patreon. There's a link in the description if you'd like to support my content. I would really appreciate it. There's also social media links in there if you want to follow me there. I'm trying to build up some of those followings. I would really appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe for more videos if you haven't already. Hit the bell, hit the like button, post a fucking comment. All that fun stuff that's standard on YouTube. You know the fucking drill. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this.